He won before most athletes even learn how to lose. Teenage champion, national symbol, global respect. Boris Becker looked like the kind of story that ends in permanent victory. Trophies, money, prestige, a life that seems solved. For years, the public saw the highlight reel. The power, the confidence, the effortless aura of someone who belongs at the top. But this episode isn't about how a champion wins. It's about how a champion can start believing the real world has different rules for famous people, especially when the applause lasts longer than the discipline that created it. Because fame doesn't just reward success. It changes your sense of consequences. After the glory years, the pressure doesn't vanish, it mutates. It becomes the pressure to maintain the image of success, to stay relevant, to keep living like the peak never ended. And that's where dangerous decisions can start. Expensive lifestyles, risky deals, can't-miss investments, advisors who sound confident, and the quiet belief that you'll always find a way out. In Becker's case, the fall wasn't triggered by a lack of talent. It was triggered by something more common and more terrifying, because it can happen to anyone with a big name. A bubble of celebrity logic, where denial feels normal and accountability feels optional. And when that bubble finally pops, it doesn't pop gently. It pops in public, on court documents, in headlines, and in the stunned silence of fans watching an icon face consequences that no fame can cancel. The rise created a powerful identity, not just athlete, but winner. Early triumph builds a special kind of confidence, the kind that can be productive on the court and reckless everywhere else. When people treat you like proof of greatness, it's easy to start trusting your instincts in rooms where instinct isn't enough. Finance, contracts, taxes, legal obligations. Once the playing days fade, the business of being a celebrity often begins. Opportunities come fast: endorsements, appearances, brand deals, partnerships. The lifestyle stays expensive because the identity demands it. And when the income becomes inconsistent, the pressure to look consistent gets louder. So people borrow, gamble on ventures, and keep spending, because slowing down feels like admitting the story changed. This is the hidden mechanism. Fame creates a bubble where warning signs get softened by flattery. Advisors tell you what you want to hear. Friends normalize the cost. The public expects the same shine. And step by step, financial reality becomes something you negotiate with, until it becomes something that drags you into a corner. In widely reported public records, Becker later faced serious legal trouble connected to insolvency proceedings in the United Kingdom. But long before a conviction, the real shift was psychological. When the appearance of success becomes more important than the structure that keeps success stable, the choices you make start serving the mask, not the life. And that's where the maze begins. Because once you're in that maze, every decision is made under pressure. Protect the image, protect the status, protect the story people believe. And the more famous you are, the more dangerous that instinct becomes, since your name doesn't just represent you. It represents a brand, a legacy, a family, and a public expectation. Financial problems aren't dramatic like scandals. They're slow. They build through paperwork, missed obligations, questionable deals, and the temptation to hide what's uncomfortable. The celebrity bubble makes hiding feel easier. Someone else can handle it. Someone else can explain it. Someone else can fix it. And if you've been rescued by victory your entire life, you may start expecting rescue as a pattern. But money has a language that doesn't care about fame. And courts have a rhythm that doesn't care about nostalgia. In the UK, Becker's case became widely covered because it wasn't just a former star having trouble. It involved allegations tied to insolvency disclosure, what was declared, what wasn't, what was moved, what was concealed, and what responsibilities were ignored. This is where fame accelerates the worst instincts: denial, overconfidence, the belief you can outmaneuver reality. And once legal scrutiny begins, that belief stops being a personality trait and becomes a risk multiplier, because every attempt to protect the image can become another layer of consequence, pushing the story out of the business pages and into criminal court. And when it reaches that point, the fall becomes both personal and public. Every detail gets translated into narrative. How could he? What happened? Was it arrogance, bad advice, desperation? The media turns complexity into a scoreboard because audiences love a rise, and they can't look away from a collapse. This is where the channel's theme hits hardest: You don't need a chemical addiction to destroy a famous life. There are other addictions: image, risk, the high of being untouchable. The drug can be the identity itself, the need to remain the person who always wins. In Becker's case, the story culminated in conviction. In 2022, he was sentenced in the UK for insolvency-related offenses, a moment widely reported around the world. And that moment carried a shock that only celebrity can create. Not because the law suddenly became harsh, but because fans weren't prepared to see a sports icon processed like any other citizen. That's the collision that makes this story so gripping. The day the bubble meets the system. The day reputation can't negotiate. The day status doesn't soften the outcome. And once the sentence is real, everything gets reevaluated at once. Legacy, family, identity. Because prison isn't just punishment. It's a public reset that fame can't rebrand. After the conviction, the question changes. It's no longer, will he recover his money? It becomes, what does a comeback even mean when the damage is structural? Because some losses can't be reversed with a good interview or a new sponsorship. They live in trust, in relationships, in the way the public rewrites your story. The cruel detail is that the public often consumes these moments like entertainment. The fall becomes content, clips, debates, hot takes, moral verdicts. And yet for the person living it, it's not a plot twist. It's life rearranged by consequences. This is where fame shows its true power as an amplifier. It amplifies victories into legend, but it also amplifies mistakes into spectacle. An average person's financial missteps might stay private. A famous person's missteps become a global lesson, broadcast in real time, with strangers deciding what you deserve. And that's the warning inside Becker's story. The most fatal choices often don't feel fatal when you're making them. They feel like temporary fixes, confident bets, small evasions, quick solutions to keep the image standing. But reality compounds. Interest grows. Options shrink. Then one day you're not negotiating with pressure anymore. You're answering to the law, the cameras, and your own past decisions, all at the same time. Boris Becker's story is a hard lesson in how fame distorts reality. When you win early, the world trains you to expect doors to open. And when the image of success becomes your identity, you start protecting the image even when it's costing you the life underneath it. That's why this isn't only a story about insolvency or courtrooms. It's a story about the addiction to being fine, the refusal to downsize, the belief that consequences are for other people. The moral is simple. Fame is an amplifier. It magnifies triumphs, but it also magnifies blind spots. And when the mask finally falls, the world watches like it's entertainment, while the person at the center lives the bill in real time. Now I want your take. What do you think destroys icons faster? Bad advice, ego, or the pressure to keep up appearances? Drop your answer in the comments. If you learned something from this story, share the video with someone who thinks financial collapse only happens to irresponsible people. Subscribe for more documentary-style episodes on the hidden side of fame, the bubbles, the power dynamics, and the real-world consequences behind the headlines. Next video, another legend who looked untouchable until reality collected everything at once.